Welcome to The Explainer. We're here to break down the big, complex topics, and today, boy, do we have a fascinating one for you.
So, how do you build a power plant in the middle of the ocean? I mean, really think about that. It sounds almost impossible, right? Well, today we're going to look at exactly how it's done by diving into the engineering plan for a huge new project called Empire Wind.
All right, let's jump right in. The project is called the Empire Wind Project, and it's a major step for renewable energy right off the coast of the U.S.
And we're not just talking about one wind farm here. This is a massive facility, and they're actually building it in two distinct phases. You've got Empire Wind 1, and then coming after that, the even larger Empire Wind 2.
Okay, so think about this. How on earth do you plan for something so massive, so complex? Especially when some of the technology you're going to use isn't even finalized yet. Well, that's a huge challenge, and it takes a very special kind of strategy.
The answer, and this is pretty clever, is something called a project design envelope. It's basically the secret sauce that lets you plan and get permits for a project like this, even when you haven't locked in every single little detail.
So what does that actually mean? Well, instead of giving the government one single rigid blueprint, you give them a range of possibilities. It's like saying, okay, the turbines we use will be no taller than this, and the foundations will be no deeper than this. You define the envelope of the project's biggest possible footprint. That way, regulators can analyze the worst-case scenario. It's a brilliant way to build in flexibility while still making sure everything is safe and has been reviewed.
All right. Enough about the planning approach. Let's get to the good stuff. What is actually going to be out there in the water? What does this city at sea actually look like?
First up, the heart of the whole operation, the turbines themselves. And we're not talking about a handful. The plan calls for 147 of these massive machines spinning out there in the open ocean.
Now, all that power from those turbines has to go somewhere, right? It needs to be collected and consolidated. That's where these come in. Two huge offshore substations. You can think of them as the brain, or maybe the central nervous system of the entire wind farm.
So how do you keep these things from, floating away? You have to anchor them to the ocean floor. And it's not a one-size-fits-all solution. For the wind turbines, they'll use something called a monopile. It's basically one giant, massive steel pipe driven into the seabed. But those substations, they're way heavier. They need something more robust, which is why they get a pile jacket foundation. Think of it like a big metal cage with multiple legs, all driven deep into the ground for extra stability.
Okay, I hope you're ready for this. We're about to talk about scale, and the numbers I'm about to give you, they're for just one single turbine. And remember, they are building 147 of these things. It's just mind-boggling.
So, from the water surface to the very tip of a blade when it's pointing straight up, we're talking a maximum height of 951 feet. To put that in perspective, that is just shy of the Eiffel Tower. An Eiffel Tower, in the middle of the ocean. It's absolutely wild.
And if that wasn't crazy enough, look at this. The diameter of the spinning blades, that full circle they make, is an incredible 853 feet. That's a spinning area almost 3 football fields long. Just try to imagine that.
Okay, so we have all these huge components. Let's take a look at how they're actually broken down between the two different phases of the project.
This table lays it out pretty clearly. You can see Empire Wind 1 has 57 turbines and one substation. But look at Phase 2. Empire Wind 2 is the bigger chunk of the project, with a whopping 90 turbines and its own substation. You can see why they'd break it up like this. It just makes a project of this magnitude a little more manageable.
Okay, so the turbines are spinning, the substations are collecting all that juice, but it's all still out in the middle of the ocean. That power is no good to us out there. So the big question is, how do you get it back to land?
The answer lies in a huge network of underwater cables. It's really the circulatory system of the whole project. You have two main types. First, you've got what are called inter-array cables. These are the smaller ones, running at 66 kilovolts, and they're like the capillaries, connecting each turbine to its nearby substation. Then you have the big arteries, the submarine export cables. These are much beefier, carrying power at 230 kilovolts, and they're responsible for that long haul,
getting all that power from the substation all the way back to shore.
And just to give you an idea of the scale here, just for those smaller inter-array cables connecting the turbines, they'll need to lay 260 nautical miles of them. That's almost 500 kilometers of cable just to connect everything up out at sea.
And then for the final stretch, that trip back to the mainland, you've got another 66 nautical miles of those heavy-duty export cables. That's the final link in the chain, delivering all of that clean electricity right where we need it.
So when you put it all together, what do you have? You have a piece of infrastructure that is just monumental. It's on a scale that's almost hard to wrap your head around. And it's all made possible by that really smart, flexible planning process. It really is a blueprint for how we're going to power our future. And that kind of leaves us with this final, big-picture thought. When you look at what it truly takes to pull something like this off, you realize projects like Empire Wind aren't just about building another power plant. They're fundamentally changing what's possible. They are literally rewriting the rules for how we can power our modern world from the sea.